Welcome to Zooming In Coronavirus Special. I'm Simone Gao. My guest today is Dr. Sean Lin, an American and Chinese trained biologist, former lab director of viral disease branch at Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. He was involved in the outbreak response for MERS in the Middle East in 2014. How are you, Sean?
Very nice. Thank you for inviting me, Simone.
Okay. Yesterday, President Trump had some very interesting exchanges with reporters at the White House briefing. We're going to talk about that in the later part of the show. But right now, I would like to talk about the medicine. We know there's no cure, no vaccine for this virus so far, but the FDA did give green light for some drugs that help treat the disease. What are they?
So first, we need to keep in mind, so the drugs that the FDA right now give green light, they are all broad spectrum. So they are not specifically against the coronavirus. So for example, one of the drug is remdesivir. So this one is actually a nucleotide analog. So originally this was a product identified through a joint investigation by US Military Medical Unit and also Gilead Sciences. And so these drugs actually can bind into the virus RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, inhibit the virus replication. So that's how it works. Another drug is actually chloroquine.
Say that again. What does it do exactly?
Okay, so these remdesivir is a nucleotide analog. So it can basically bind to the virus RNA-dependent RNA polymerase and inhibit the virus replication process. So basically the virus cannot produce its progeny RNA. So this way you slow down or inhibit the virus replication, right? So it will inhibit the virus produce more in the human bodies.
So it basically prevent the virus from replicating itself, from reproducing?
Yes.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so the other drug, chloroquine, is also aimed to inhibit the virus replication, but it works on a different mechanism. So chloroquine actually can change the pH value in the endosome inside the cell. So the coronavirus, when it enters the cell, it will also enter the endosome. So when the pH value changes, so virus fusion inside the endosome will be inhibited. So this way, virus cannot normally unpack. So in this way, and the virus replication will also be impacted. That's how it works. Yeah. So, but because it's broad spectrum, so this chloroquine basically was actually used primarily for anti-malaria. For example, when we deploy to Middle East, this is one of the medicine we always required to carry because malaria was rampant in the Middle East and also in Africa as well. But right now, it's just this old drug finding its new purpose, right? So people, so FDA give the green light for the chloroquine to be tried for the corona patients.
So basically, those two types of drugs, instead of killing the virus itself, but just stop it from replicating itself. That's the mechanism.
Yes, so it's not like for example, disinfectant, you kill the virus. So the virus, once you enter inside the human body, so you find a way to inhibit its replication, and the human body has its own immune system, right? It has a capability to clear the virus outside the body as long as the virus body, as long as the virus not replicating very aggressively inside the body.
So how effective will those drugs be if it does stop the virus from replicating itself?
So right now, remdesivir is actually a phase 3 clinical trial inside China with more than 1,000 patients registered as volunteers. But however, the efficacy of these drugs for treating the patient is not known yet. And we only know in the United States, only one coronavirus infected patient in Seattle has been tried with this remdesivir. And so how effective, we need to wait for the trial finish so we get more data. And chloroquine, there are some studies in China ongoing, we still haven't seen the data yet. So basically, the word is not clear about how effective these drugs are.
Okay. We know the standard test for the coronavirus is the nucleic acid test. Are there any other effective way to detect the virus?
Yeah, you asked a very important question. I think right now, especially in United States, so much focus on the nucleic acid test, but there are other assays very important too. For example, antibody-based test, either ELISA assays or dipstick, rapid testings. I actually saw a report in Taiwan. Taiwan's Academia Sinica actually invented or well-established antibody-based dipstick assay. So basically, you can finish this testing in 15 minutes instead of a few hours, comparing to the nucleic acid test. So it's very efficient.
6 minutes?
About 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
About 15 minutes, yes. So do I need to say it once again?
No.
Okay. So it's very interesting. They identify antibodies that can be embedded on this dipstick, and they use it to recognize the virus nuclear capsid protein. So I think this is a very effective way because nuclear capsid protein is one of the most abundant protein in the virus particle. So the chance of detecting the virus particle is much higher actually than compared to the nucleic acid assay. And the protein is much more stable than RNA. So in this way, I think this assay will, when it's in full production and being further validated, it will be a very effective way to detect the virus.
Okay, the Chinese PLA. So, the Chinese PLA claimed on Wednesday that they have successfully manufactured a vaccine against the coronavirus. What is your read on this?
Yeah, that report definitely caught my attention. So I read the report on the Chinese official media, and I actually realized it's actually not reflecting the true situation. Basically, the Chinese PLA, together with CanSino company, they developed a recombinant coronavirus vaccine. So this vaccine is actually inserting the spike protein's gene into adenovirus backbone. So it's a chimeric virus vaccine. And the company, CanSino, actually only produced the products that are ready for clinical trial. So it's at the very early stage of the drug development, right? So basically they submit the application for clinical trial on this past Tuesday. And very amazingly, the Chinese government actually quickly approved it within 24 hours. So the next day, on Wednesday, they got approved. And so that was really surprising to me. Because in the United States, usually, at least this application need very careful review. It takes quite a few days, at least.
What does that tell you? Why do they use such a short time to approve it?
That actually, it's a good question. It also concerned me a lot because I also read other reports that the Chinese government is trying to save their face. It puts a lot of pressure on this company and also Chinese PLA, urging them to try to be the one of the company that developed the vaccine, first, comparing to other commercial company in the Western world. So this might be just pure purpose for competition. So I worry about the review process. For example, in the United States, the company Moderna, they also develop a vaccine product. So they make the vaccine product on February 24 and give it to the NIH on that day. But it took several days for the FDA to approve it. FDA only approved it until March 4th. So I think this is a more reasonable timeline because you need a careful review of these drugs application, especially for initial animal studies. What did you find out from this animal study? What's the toxicity range, and also about the antibody that it can produce, how long it will last. So animal study, ideally, it should take a longer time and maybe even testing of rebootings and try to understand about the antibodies responsible in a better way before you put it on the human body. But right now, it's of course it's an ongoing pandemic. The government can rush it, but the review process just really so short. It made me concerned. Yeah.
And another claim the CCP did was that there was 0 new cases gained in China yesterday. Do you believe what they said?
Frankly, I don't believe their data because in the past 2-3 months, we didn't see any report about any successful treatment regimens that's been validated inside China. So even though there are cases mentioned the patient recovered, we don't know any really effective treatment measures, right? So most of the treatment was actually supportive care. And so how did those patients quickly recovered? So the amazing increase of patients recovered, those numbers increased so fast. It was really surprising to the medical society. Meanwhile, even though Chinese government used these draconian measures, try to contain the virus and limit the people's transmission between humans. So, but the problem is the virus still has a long incubation period, and so many people in home, they could still be containing the virus, still being transmitting among the family members. Even people who've been discharged from those temporary hospitals may still be carrying the virus. We saw reports mentioning that some of the patients even still have clear clinical syndromes, even showing those ground glass image in their CT scans. Just 2-3 days before they're being discharged. It's medically almost impossible. So I don't believe this data is real inside China.
Mm-hmm. So, we have seen examples of, we have seen reports of those people with symptoms discharged from the hospitals, but we don't know the number of those examples. My question is, it's unbelievable that the entire China doesn't have newly added cases. But on the other hand, even there's there are a few cases or there are a number of cases. Do you think that will amount to a potential second outbreak?
Yes, it's very likely. Indeed, I think the Chinese government probably incubating the second wave outbreak, probably even bigger outbreak, because when so many people still carrying the virus, even though they may not have symptoms, they resume their daily work and without social distancing, and many other factories may not be able to provide sufficient hygiene protections, and people start to engage more gathering events. So this is really dangerous, and the virus could spread out quickly again. And the problem is that the Chinese government try to create a false illusion in the society that the disease being contained, these kind of outbreaks already passed. Only the overseas other countries suffering from the outbreak. So people will lose the alert to need to be protecting themselves very carefully. So I think it could cause more infection, human-to-human transmission in the communities, in the factories, in a working unit that people gather together again. So I think it's very dangerous, and you can see the virus has not slowed down even from global perspective. You see, so many countries still have a very exponential growth of cases. I cannot imagine the virus suddenly slow down in China while it's so active outside China. It's unbelievable.
President Trump said this for several times at the press briefing yesterday, and he said if we have known it earlier, we could have done something. We could have stopped it right where it came from, China. So do you agree with the president? If the CCP did not cover up, if we knew the outbreak earlier, could we avoid this global pandemic?
Yeah, I think he's telling the whole world a very straightforward truth that if Chinese government can be transparent at the beginning and can tell the Chinese citizens and the whole world what is going on in Wuhan in December and early January, the whole world will be in a much better situation. And recently I saw a report. It's a preprint, but it's actually a major study result by many scientists from United Kingdom, China, United States. And this report is, the leading organization is the University of Southampton in United Kingdom. So they do a lot of the modeling study, and based on their study model, it's called a word pop, right? So using this model, they actually predict if the Chinese government can be transparent 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks earlier, then the total case number in China can reduce 66%, 86%, or even 95% respectively, right? So that is to say, if Chinese government can be transparent and telling the Chinese people, like at late December, what's happening in Wuhan, or even in early January, then the Chinese population will have at least 2 weeks advance notice about this outbreak. Then the whole case in China can reduce 86%. Can you imagine that number, right? Right now, China had about over 100,000 cases, and they can be dramatically reduced, and it won't have a pandemic worldwide too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to ask you, what's going to be the impact on the world if that happened?
Yeah, it's really huge difference. You know, if Chinese government can alert people much earlier, then so many people from Wenzhou in China, they won't probably scared and then rush into Italy and they spread the virus to Italy, for example, and maybe even the government from other continents can be alerted and they can have better protections. So I think the Chinese government definitely it should be held accountable for this covering up of this outbreak, because it's really they curse to the whole world, and I think Chinese government need to be held accountable seriously.
Right. President Trump called the virus China virus. Others call it a Wuhan virus or CCP virus. What is your preference?
So I think generally it is common to name the virus based on where it's originated. So calling the Wuhan virus, of course, is quite normal, and we saw Secretary Pompeo being calling Wuhan virus many times, and President Trump called it China virus. That's also legitimate, because it originated from China. But at the same time, I also feel calling the CCP virus also quite accurate. It's because CCP's malfeasance in early control of the virus outbreak, and also carrying out the information that caused the virus to spread out to the whole world and turn it into a pandemic. So it's CCP's fault. So from that perspective, it is actually quite accurate to call it a CCP virus. And so that people understand who should be accountable for this pandemic outbreak.
So,
and meanwhile, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, so you will go with CCP virus?
Yes, I would go with CCP virus, and I think it's accurate and telling people the problems, and also telling people the root of the problem, and also telling the people how to overcome the problem. So I think when people calling it a CCP virus, people kind of decoupling it from CCP, right? So people, understand that the CCP spread out this virus through its and allowing so many people got infected and they're still traveling around the world. This is how CCP spread the virus, right? So I think it's accurate.
So CCP virus it is. Thank you, Sean. That's it for today's coronavirus special. You are watching Zooming In with Simone Gao. Please also subscribe and listen to our podcast, available now on Spotify, iTunes, and Google. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Goodbye.